Mossoma. Tangativo ombusa tanga neusama kosa. Alumuna sisi au yasama kosa. Amuna yeye, koma, samakusa.
Hello, good morning. This is Tempo Afric TV's Beyond the Headlines program, and I'm your host, Petros Haile. Today, our guest is Mr. MOUSSA DIAWARA. We're going to talk about Mali. Mr. DIAWARA is the president of Malayan community here in Minnesota. Mr. DIAWARA, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Pedros. Thank you. It's a great pleasure for having me here today on this show to talk about Mali. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you. As we all know, Mali, the pride of Africa, especially historically speaking, from Timbuktu and even prior to Timbuktu, Mali has a lot of history that contributes to an African civilization. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and also the colonial history and some of the student movement that has changed Malayan government, which you were part of it.
Yes.
And at the end, we'll talk about the current conflict in Mali and what it means to Mali and for the rest of Africa. And thank you again. If you don't mind, if we start from the history of Mali.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pedros. Thank you for having me again, once again on this show. You are absolutely right. Mali has contributed to a great civilizations in Africa, not only in West Africa, but in Africa in general. Mali has a great history, a great empires. We are talking about empires of Mali itself. We are talking about empire of Soni Alibert, which was northern Mali.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about University of Timbuktu. We are talking about Djenné. Mali has a lot of great history in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
As you just mentioned, we all heard about University of Timbuktu, which where I'm going to start with, has a great history of teaching not only Islamic or Qurans or anything, like teaching way more beyond that, just that. Not to jump ahead of myself, not long ago we heard about manuscripts of Timbuktu, which part of them were burned. They were there for centuries. They were kept for UNESCO manuscripts that they were protected because they are hard to found.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, some of them were burned. But yes, Mali has a lot of histories, going all the way to Sudan, to Egypt, and coming back again, Sudan to Chad, which was part of all these histories of Mali and Empire of Mali.
Okay. on the thing that you said, some of the documents were burned. We'll come to it.
Okay.
Especially the burning that occurred recently when the extremists took over. We'll come to that. And I realize that Mali is a landlocked country.
Yes.
And surrounded by 6 African countries.
Yes.
You have a lot of neighbors.
We do have a lot of neighbors. Mali is surrounded by, you have a Niger. Mali has a border with Niger. We have Burkina Faso. Mali has a border with Burkina Faso. Mali has a border with Algeria. Mali has a border with Mauritania. Mali has a border with the Ivory Coast. Mali has a border with Guinea. Mali has a border with all those countries.
Okay.
Senegal, Mali has a border with Senegal. That's to tell you how Mali is among its neighbors. And Mali also, unfortunately, doesn't have access to the sea. So Mali does a lot of trading, importation, exportation, all go through these countries that surround Mali that has access to the sea, as the Ivory Coast, as the Guinea, as Senegal, and as Mauritania. All these countries does a business of trade with Mali, such as importation and exportations.
Okay. I think having a lot of neighbors has a plus and minus as well.
It absolutely does.
Again, we'll talk about the plus and minus. And Mali, speaking of Mali, we learned in history when we were kids, Mensa Moussa keeps coming to mind. Why is that Mensa Moussa so popular in African history?
Mansa Moussa was very popular in African history. I don't know if you have heard this before. Is called to be the richest man in the world.
Yes.
Mansa Moussa has done a lot of trade. Mansa Moussa has traveled all over Mali. Mansa Moussa was doing a trade of gold trade. Mansa Moussa has a lot of followers, and every movement of Mansa Moussa going from Mali to Ghana, for example, he was followed by his follower were with him. He does a lot of trade, and his trade were mainly the gold trade.
Okay.
So that has made him one of the richest men in the world in back in the 18th centuries. And then he did not only travel to Ghana. Mansa Moussa was going all the way from Mali to Algeria to Chad to all the way to Egypt. These were his routes. These were the place where he would travel to do trade. And the trade was not only exporting his gold to this country, but also coming back. He had something to bring back to his people, to his populations.
Okay, yeah, that's what I read in one of the articles. In fact, on his way to Mecca, he gave Egypt a gold that they've never seen. And that is part of his legacy. And speaking of resource, Mali is known for producing gold and rices recently become the thing. Was gold and salt, yeah. And they were very well known to that.
You're right. Still today, Mali is, I believe, the third largest producer of gold in Africa. Mali has evolved since then. Also, Mali was, back in the days, the first or the second largest producer of cottons after Egypt. So today, Mali, again, is the second largest producer of rice in Africa. So that's to tell you there is a number of things that Malians were very good at. We have a lot of those resources that hasn't been explored still. But as we are today, but in this 21st century, Malians are trying to find ways how to better explore these resources to the benefit of the Malian populations. Because let me say this, Mr. Pedros, although Mali has been known to be a great producer or have a resource of gold, but the Malian gold really hasn't benefited the Malian population as it's supposed to. The same goes with the cottons. Back in the days, Mali was the second largest producer of cottons. It hasn't really benefited those who are working hard in the farming places to produce that cottons. The price that was put into those cottons were not up to the standard. And today, again, Mali is the second largest producer of rice.
In Africa.
And still, we think we can do a better job how to explore and how the Malian are going to benefit from their hard labor for those productions.
For local consumption.
For local culture, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now, I guess you gave us enough introduction to history. We can go to colonialism. During the scramble for Africa, French controlled Mali. And when they controlled it the first time, they called it French Sudan. then it changed to a Sudanese Republic.
Yeah.
Do you mind telling us why that happened?
Yes, thank you again. When it comes to colonialism, everybody, a lot of people knew that Mali was colonized by the French people. It goes back to when the World War II was going on before Mali becomes independent. The French troops were coming to Mali, Senegal. They have all these soldiers that they were taking from Senegal to go to France and to fight for the Second War against the Germans. After that, Mali, the war was over. All these nations that were brought to Senegal to be deported from Senegal to go fight for the World War II came back. First, the Malians were majority of these Malians at the time who were able to stand for the country were in Senegal.
Oh, okay.
Then and then from Senegal, it was called the Sudan Français, as they call it. And then Malian came retreat and came to Mali, and then at the time it was Modibo Keïta who was the first president of Mali, and who declared in 1960 that Mali want his independence, and then from the name of Sudan Français, they changed it to a name that is more familiar to Malian themselves, calling it Mali as opposed to be the Sudan Français.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So that's how the name
That's
came
how
about.
it becomes
But
Mali,
it has
yeah.
no connection with the present-day Sudan.
No. It has no connection, direct connection to the present day of Sudan.
Oh, okay.
But how did the name came up to be the Sudan Français?
Okay.
That part we don't really know exactly how that part came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The French lost their territory,
Yes.
or Mali gained independence in 1960. From that time till 1991, Mali was ruled by a dictatorship.
Exactly.
Can I say that? Okay.
Exactly. Thank you again for me to enlighten our viewers of Tempo Afric TV. Mali was started with after the independence. The first president was Modibo Keïta. Modibo Keïta was known to be a true patriot, if I can say. Modibo Keïta has, with the little that he has at the time, was able to put a system in place to get the Mali going. Because Modibo Keïta did not only proclaim the independence of Mali, Modibo Keïta also has asked the French troops to retreat from Mali.
Oh, okay.
And at the time, Mali didn't have anything to form an army, but he was able to form an army. And Modibo Keïta was ruling in Mali until Moussa Traoré Moussa Traoré came and overthrown Modibo Keïta.
Okay. Yeah.
Moussa Traoré overthrown Modibo Keïta. Moussa Traoré was in power for 23 years in Mali and ruling Mali for 23 years. During those 23 years, again, there was, once again, there has been some issue in northern Mali, like always, because there's the ethnicity in northern Mali called Tuaregs were trying to fight when, shortly after the independence, were trying to fight to proclaim the northern Mali independent, to make northern Mali another country.
Okay.
So during the time of Moussa Traoré, there was a troop sent to the northern Mali to fight against this Tuareg, to abandon the project of independence. And in that time, because the Tuaregs were not ready enough to face the Malian army, a lot of them fled and went to Libya. We will come back to that. So to just set the ground right now,
Yeah, okay.
you have a better understanding of what are the Tuaregs,
Correct.
how
Okay.
do they end up in Libya, and how do they came back.
Okay.
This is during when Moussa Traoré was in power in 1960, and then so Moussa Traoré being in power for 23 years. Did not want to talk about regime change, did not want to talk about do like 2 or 3 terms and then after that and then leave and let somebody else take over the country and see what they can do. in 1991, in 1991, there was a movement in Mali. And that movement, I am proud to be sitting here to tell you I was a part of it at the grassroots, because then the students were on the street. They were on the street demanding indirectly for regime change. But their demand were not quoted directly, okay, we don't want our current president anymore at the beginning. It was, we need a better life. We need a better situation for ourselves. We need a better schools. We need a better teaching. And then from then, the politician who wanted for Moussa Traoré at the time being president to go away, invited themselves into this demand of the students. And then while the students saw that they have a help from the politicians to back them up for their demand, the worker also were, the union worker were also oppressed. For 23 years, there were no increase of salary. For 23 years, sometimes they can spend 2, 3, 4 months. Family men can work and not get paid for their work. So the frustration was built up everywhere. So that just, it didn't take much for all this to come together. And then all of a sudden the fight were on for the change of regime for the democracy. Democracy.
If I may add something,
yes.
you can add to it. The military at the beginning was resisting, but down the line it joined the movement, right?
The military at the beginning, more than half of the military did not approve, did agree with the student movement, did agree with the politicians. But at the time, if you publicly came forward as military to say, hey, I am joining this group, you're setting yourself for you know what's going to come after that.
Yes, that's true.
So there was a lot of military who agree with the student, but cannot manifest or cannot externalize it in eye of everybody that yes, we are supporting the student movement, we are supporting the worker unions, we are supporting the politician for regime change.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you clarified that one. And another element, like the student movement, I'm not sure how to say it in French, AEM.
Yeah, the student movement was called IAM, which is Association des élèves et étudiants du Mali.
Okay.
There was a coordination. The coordination was at a higher level.
Okay.
At the time, I was part of this movement, but I was at a grassroots level. What we do at the time was, I was at the time the Secretary of Exterior Relationship.
Oh, for that movement?
Yeah, for this movement, but at the grassroots level. So what we call in French, Secrétaire des Relations Extérieures.
Okay.
So in my establishment, the school that I was attending at the time, and whenever we have a general assembly, the coordination, which is the higher movement, will have the meeting. Whatever they decide at the meeting, there's a Secretary General of each school who will come and report it to his committee what they talk about at the meeting.
Okay.
So based on that, we'll decide what to do. We'll decide what to do means, unfortunately at the time, the school was paralyzed for 2 years. Every here and then we have a general assembly in our schools. And then so we, as a member of this board, this committee at the grassroots level, will gather all the students, will inform them of what decision was made or has been decided by the coordinations. And then so oftentimes it was either to tell the students, we are going on the street tomorrow, we are going to go ask for our right. We are going to go join the worker unions to let them know that we are in this battle together. And or we will tell the students, okay, the school has been suspended for 2 weeks. And then so during that 2 weeks, the coordination is still consulting politicians, they're still consulting the government. There was a little talk at the time with the government because everybody was scared at some point that if you are invited to the meeting, you go there, you're not coming back.
Oh, okay.
More than likely it's going to take you, you're going to be jailed. And then this coordination movement leaders were hunted.
Okay.
You have to hide. We hide out nighttime to go conduct meetings at the places that nobody will thought that we will ever be. So that's how the student movement got to gather and gather with the politicians, gather with the worker unions to fight for a regime change.
On that one, the coordination you're talking about, is this the Alliance for Democracy and Progress? Or is it different?
There was an Alliance for Democracy and Progress. At the time, that was the biggest coordination.
Okay.
That was the one that had more people, more leaders in believing in their cause. But there were other alliance movement that was called SNID.
Okay.
There was Parena at the time. There was a US RDA. You know, there was a lot of movements who all come together. And then to ask for a regime change. It was not for it was for the regime change, but the way how they worded it was that we want to transition from unique party to democracy.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
On that issue, earlier when we were discussing, there was two kinds of approach. One is to reform the system as it is.
Yes.
The other one is fundamentally remove the system and introduce a democratic institution.
Yeah.
Which path did you guys took, and which one was successful for you guys?
I think after 23 years of ruling Mali, and then at the time, Malians and political leaders and workers and students have seen what Moussa Traoré could have done for the country. And I think the approach was that the student movement were called to the table a number of times to negotiate with the government. But again, at the time, the politicians who were there, because the student movement, we were young.
Yeah.
We were not knowledgeable about politics. We could say we were being manipulated, but by the government in place. But at the same time, the politician on the other side, the opposition on the other side, were meeting with some of these coordination movement leaders, telling them, you know what, do not sit down and negotiate with them, because they're going to agree with something with you. They're going to agree on something with you, but they're never going to follow through. So what we need is, after 23 years of ruling Mali, we know what Moussa Traoré and his government is capable of doing. We just need this regime to step down. So we have democracy coming. So we have a voice to elect our leaders, and then those leaders hopefully can take us to a better future, to a better Mali. Okay. And that's the road that consensually we all come to say, okay, you know what, let's just fight for this regime change. So while we were on that battles, because at the time we were just worker unions, we were a student, we didn't have weapons, we didn't have anything to fight the government in place, we have to try to get alliance from the military. See who is willing to join us to have this regime change. That's when another name come into place, which is Amadou Toumani Touré. Amadou Toumani Touré, who succeeded to Moussa Traoré by a military coup, now was approached by certain political leaders, now was approached by a certain student movement, and then also was there and witnessed to see what was happening to their children, to their mothers, to their grandmothers. Because this movement was not only for students at some point, or for the politician at some point, or for the worker unions. The mothers were involved. The mothers were decided that they're not going to sit in their house anymore and watch every day on the news their children are being killed. So they also kind of come out, and they were converging for the presidential palace to go there and ask the president at the time to step down.
Amadou Touré.
Amadou Toumani Touré
is a very well-respected leader of Mali.
Yes.
For one thing, because of his declaration of 1992.
Yes.
But he did not take the office. Another character, Alpha
Omar
Omar
Kanari.
Kanari
Yeah.
took the office. So he ruled that for a year, for the first term.
Yeah, what happened with Amadou Toumani Touré is when Amadou Toumani Touré finally joined the cause to reverse or to do a coup
Okay.
for this regime, he also consulted some of his bodies, military bodies, some people, some of the military leaders that he knew would not betray him. So they did the coup to Moussa Traoré. Moussa Traoré was overthrown.
Okay.
And then when Moussa Traoré was overthrown, since the battle was about to implement democracy in Mali, so there was a transitional government.
Okay. Okay.
That transitional government was called CTSP, which is Comité National de Transition.
Okay. Okay.
So that was Amadou Toumani Touré and his buddies who did the military coup, reversed the military Moussa Traoré regime. They took over for 1 year. They took over for 1 year to bring order.
Okay.
Because when they took over, then all these movements had stopped.
Okay.
The students were not on the street anymore. The politicians at the time, everybody was acclaiming, was applauding this good news, which was the overthrow of 23 years of Moussa Traoré dictatorship.
Okay.
So now Amadou Toumani Touré stayed there and then tried to organize elections. At the time, nobody, what made him popular?
Okay.
At the time, nobody thought he would come and then bring law and order, if I can say, and then organize elections, and then have a new president, and then he will withdraw himself, and then he will just go back into his previous role, which was being a military man. That's something that what he just did. He came in. It was not easy because at the time there were too many demands. The workers want to get higher pay. The students are demanding to better condition to work and to go to school, and they're asking for money. So through all those struggles, he manages somehow to put things in place at the time with what he has. And then, so election came. The election were open to everyone.
Okay. Okay.
Everyone means what? Anybody who's eligible to run for a presidency in Mali were told, okay, you need to have your candidacy, declare yourself. There is a money that you need to pay in order to even be a candidate for presidency. So those who were able to pay that at the time, everybody came in, and then so we have elections. That election, as a result, Alpha Omar Konare of Adema at the time, who was the leader of Adema, came out to be the nominees or to be the new elected president of Mali. So, but before we get to that, there has some work that needed to be done. They have to reshape the Malian constitution again, put words in there that says that you can only be a president for 2 terms.
Okay.
If you elected for president for 5 years, and then that 5 years expire, you have the right to run for a 2nd term. If you are elected, then that will be your last term to be a president of Mali. And then you will step down and give a chance to somebody else who can also take over. So after shaping the Malian constitution, and then so they went to elections. There was a winner, Alpha Omar Konare, who took over Mali and who did the first 5 years as the president of Mali, and again had a chance to do a 2nd term, which is another 5 years as the president of Mali. But then at the end of those 5 years, the 2nd term, he will step down, and then giving a chance to somebody else to be a president of Mali.
That's when Amadou Touré, the retired general, came back into the picture, and they say the 8 or 10 years that he ruled was the most peaceful and stable time in the Malayan history. Is that true?
Well, that's what they say. Everybody have their own opinions when it comes to who is in power and who does what, who doesn't do what. I think the democracy as said by a former president in French, Jacques Chirac, who said that democracy was a luxury for Malians. Not for African in general,
Okay.
not only for Malian, for African in general. So Malians not knowing a whole lot about democracy and being put in a spot to actually talk about
Hello?
Okay. I'm
Hello?
sorry, I just want to interrupt you. You're going to finish that
Okay.
question in a minute, but I guess
Hello?
we have a caller. Hello, caller.
Allô?
Yes,
C'est Malik?
I can hear you.
Oh, j'aimerais parler à Malik.
If you can be a little louder, that helps.
Okay. Yes. I was talking about how democracy
Okay.
was called to be a luxury for Malians. Democracy for African in general. Amadou Toumani Touré left after overthrowing Moussa Traoré regime, and then Alpha Omar Konaré came to the power for 10 years, and those 10 years were a learning lesson for Malians as being newly introduced to this democracy. So I can say that Alpha Omar Konaré did not a bad job for 10 years as a shaping Malian democracy. It stumbled, but he was always there with the concept, certain concept that he had in mind that would make Mali better today. So he did his 10 years, and then to the surprise of all, we have seen in Africans very often when someone comes in power and then they say, okay, I'm going to do only 2 terms, and then after that, and then I'm gone, and I'm not coming back.
Okay.
And then oftentimes we see that after the 10 years, at the end of the 10 years, those same presidents are trying to change their constitution to give them a chance again to run for another 3 terms or 4 terms. But in Alpha Omar Konaré case, that didn't happen.
Okay.
Just like I said, Amadou Toumani Touré came, and then had a transition there, and then organized elections. Elections were over, and then Amadou Toumani Touré went back to his previous role. Alpha Omar Konaré came in, and then did his 10 years, and at the end of the 10 years again, he also left. But here is what happened. Because we at the time then, Amadou Toumani Touré sitting on the sideline, watching how things are unfolding, has learned a lot about democracy then at the time. He has learned a lot about how things are working and what Alpha Omar Konaré did.
Okay.
And then so he gave himself a chance to retire as an army, because they were saying if you are a military or democracy, you cannot run. So he has to retire from being a general, from being a military man, to give himself a chance to run for the presidency.
And he was popular, and he won.
He was popular
Yeah.
at the time because he stick to the gun,
Okay.
which is he said that he would organize election, he would go, and then he did that. So he gained a lot of trust from international community. He gained a lot of trust from Malians. So that gave him a chance when Alpha Omar Konaré was done and come back to the power. He came back again as a president of Mali.
Oh, he came back again?
Amadou Toumani Touré
Yeah.
came back again as a president of Mali after Alpha Omar Konaré.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant, which is right after 2002.
2002.
Election. By the way, the quote you made by Chirac, the French president, originally said by Obasanjo, Nigerian president.
Nigerian
said,
president.
democracy is a luxury to Africa.
Africans.
He changed his mind later down the line, but he said that way back. I remember. Yeah, it's not a luxury. It's a necessity. I'm glad we covered a lot of issues prior to 2012. Right, Amadou Touré. After him, a brief crisis occurred in Mali.
In Mali, yes.
Particularly the northern Mali,
Mali.
known as the northern Mali conflicts. The Tuareg,
The Tuaregs, yes.
Tuareg, yeah.
Again, as I was saying earlier here, if you remember, in 1960, how the Tuaregs were having some conflict with the Malian government in northern Mali because they were aiming for for the independence of that part of Mali. That didn't work. So again, 2000, since 2002.
Yeah. Before that, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
That Tuareg earlier you were saying, sometimes in 1968 there was a war, and most of the Tuareg went to Libya.
Libya.
So Libya did not have a Tuareg population originally, or?
The Libyans, most of the Tuaregs in Libya originated from Mali.
Mali, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead then.
Most
Okay,
of the
yeah.
Tuaregs from Libya originated from Mali. Since 2002, if I may say, we have seen something in management of Amadou Toumani Touré that shouldn't take place in the first place. Unfortunately, it did. There was a lack of leadership in northern Mali. There was a lack of leadership in Amadou Toumani Touré government.
Okay.
Because the impression that was given to the Malian, which ended up being true, that the northern Mali were left to himself. Imagine if we have a country big like Mali, and then you don't have enough forces in all part of the country to secure the border, to protect the country from invaders, to protect the country from people from coming in and then just have their own place and then sit in a part of the country very comfortably. So Amadou Toumani Touré came back after Alpha Omar Konaré. The first 5 years, he again, being a military man, now have a lot of experience in politics beside overthrowing Moussa Traoré regime, and then really couldn't control and all part of the country. And the part that was somewhat neglected a little bit was northern Mali.
Okay.
And then people we've been assisting to see in foreign forces coming to install, coming to take roots in northern Mali. Algeria has a lot of history of terrorism. There is a lot of terrorist group in Algeria, and they were fighting the Algerian government. Every time that Algerians are fighting them, they will fled to come to northern Mali because they know it's easy for them to cross the border to come to Mali. There are not enough forces there to stop them from coming in. So they use northern Mali, part of northern Mali that has a border with Algeria, as their safe haven.
The Tuareg.
The Tuaregs and then some Islamic group.
The Maghreb.
The movement Islamic of Maghreb.
Okay.
And then we have Al Murabutin, which is part of that same movement. Al Qaeda in Maghreb.
Yeah.
And so those people came into northern Mali and then take roots there, and then get to learn the region, get to know all the hideout places where they can hide out in case they were being attacked. So Amadou Toumani Touré did 5 years, and then during those first 5 years, we started to assist to what? These jihadists, these Al-Qaeda in Maghreb folks, would kidnap foreigners from Niger, from anywhere they can kidnap them. They will bring them where?
In Mali.
In northern Mali. It's a safe haven. So that was a chance, again, for a movement that's called MLA, Mouvement National de Libération de l'Azawad.
Azawad, yeah.
That movement is the Tuaregs that I was telling you about in 1960, where their great-great-grandfathers fled, go to Libya. So these folks who were fighting the Malian government, or still are fighting the Malian government today, most of them at the time weren't even born.
Okay.
But they feel like, okay, this is a part of their land. This is their country. And they were courageous enough to come back. Why? Because they noticed that the movement, all these terrorist movements are in the northern Mali, which is they consider part of their country.
Okay.
So they also organizes themselves to come. And when they came, they right away demand, again, the same demand that they had in 1960.
Freedom.
For them,
Yeah.
they reinstated that demand that they need to have they need to have independence of Mali.
Okay, okay. This might be out of the question because they should answer. It's not you. But you think there's a legitimacy in their demand to have a separate homeland from Mali? Is the demand legitimate or?
I personally don't think the demand is legitimate.
Okay.
Let me give you just a couple of reasons why the demand I don't think is legitimate. I don't think Algeria has any interest to see another country flourishing in northern Mali called a country, separate country.
Oh, okay.
I don't think Niger has any benefits of seeing a different country flourishing out of Mali. Burkina the same way, Mauritania the same way. Just for that, I don't think it's legitimate. But what is legitimate? That anybody.
Okay, hold on that thought. I guess we have a caller. Go ahead, caller. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I want to ask a question to your guest.
Go ahead.
Okay, he was talking about how is his name? Amani Touré, I think.
What was that again?
How he ended.
How he end what? I'm sorry. Finish the sentence.
Okay, how when he came back to be a president, what happened at the end?
At the end of what? The student movement?
No, the ATT presidency.
Yes, sir. I am not understanding you correctly. If you can just go over here and refresh my memory of what is that at the end of the ATT presidency? Because we are still on that same topic. What is your corrections?
Okay, my question is this. When he came back, you say he did his third term. Did the Mali people went to election or how he left the power?
I think he's referring to the second term.
Okay, this second term, I'm still chronologically, I'm still coming to that point. He did not left the power yet at this point. This is the event that took place while he was still in power. But now, before he went out of power, that's when Amadou Aya Sanogo and all that is going to be involved. But I'm coming there progressively. I'm not there yet. Is that what you say?
Yeah.
May I ask you who's calling?
I cannot hear you well.
I said, may I ask you who am I talking to? Who is calling? Your name, please?
I'm talking about Amani Touré, the president.
I know. We're talking about Amadou Toumani Touré, the president. We are still on that topic. I'm describing right now the event that took place while Amadou Toumani Touré was in power, before he left the power. But I know you are saying that how he left the power. I haven't got there yet, but if you're gonna still follow us, I will get there shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you, caller.
And you're giving a good answer, and you're making people understand better the Mali situation. I will call you back if I have another question.
Okay, thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, I was still talking about the Amadou Toumani Touré situation,
Yeah.
the event that took place before he left the power. The first 5 years that he was there, these are the events that took place that a lot of people didn't notice or didn't say much about. there were these insurgents coming to have a safe haven in Mali. And then while they were doing that, how do they survive? They will kidnap foreigners and they will trade them with the money. They will ask the national of those foreigners, the countries of those origins, to pay some ransom money in order for them to free them. And some of the country did in fact pay the money to them, and it was not a little money, it was a lot of money. And that's the money that they were using and to better themselves. That's the money that they were using. On top of that, they were doing all kinds of activities: drug trafficking, human trafficking, weapon trafficking. So anyhow, they have their safe haven the first 5 years. Amadou Toumani Touré was there. The second 5 years that Amadou Toumani Touré was re-elected again as a president for the second term, that's when things has gone really, really bad.
Okay, the second term.
The second term, things has gone really, really bad. People were complaining, workers were complaining, the military folks were complaining. Amadou Toumani Touré itself found himself in a situation where there was now, he has a 2-3 conflict in his hand. We have the fight that broke in northern Mali. Where the Movement National of Liberations take weapons in 2012 and attack a military camp in Mali and slaughter about 100 of our soldiers. And then the military was more mad about that situation because the folks who were slaughtered, the military camp that was attacked, they didn't have ammunition. They didn't have weapons. They were not prepared to face the situation that they did face. So, and they were now, the military, in his other hand, were asking the president for more weapons, for more troops to be sent in that part of the country. But that's when most of the politicians, most of the Malians, come to realize that Mali army was not what we thought it was back in the 1960s, back in the days. Because again, since 1960, since the war with our neighbors, Burkina Faso, Mali didn't invest any money in his military. The old arsenal that were in all these ammunition stores were there, hasn't been tested. Nothing has been done to it. So Amadou Toumani Touré, fighting to get to the end of his second term and to turn over to a new elected president, found himself battling with the problem that was going on in northern Mali. So he tried. What did he try? He tried to resolve the conflict peacefully as opposed to be taking a military actions. But then the rebels, which is Movement National de Libération Lazawad, and also ACMI, who was already there, and Mujao, that's another group because they divided themselves in a segment. And then all these groups found an opportunity there. There was an opportunity. But how do they get the weapons to fight the Malian government? So the collapse of Gaddafi regime by the French and his allies facilitated this collapse for the entire northern region of Mali. Because what happened? All these rebels in 1960 that fled, that went to Libya, that were the most approached people by Gaddafi, because Gaddafi did not have a trust to his own people. So Gaddafi, some will say, a lot of people are saying that part of Gaddafi mother may come from Mali, northern Mali.
From Tuareg?
From Tuaregs. From Timbuktu. Precisely. So Gaddafi had all these guys, when they fled Mali, to come there, very close to him. They were his bodyguards. They were his eyes and ears, you know. So Gaddafi kind of get all those people around him, and those people knew all these ammunitions. They knew all the store. They knew all the dangerous weapons, where to get them. So when Gaddafi regime collided, So these people were no longer welcome in Libya.
Libya, okay.
So what did they do? They say, okay, we come from somewhere. We might as well just go right back to where we come from. Going back to where they come from, what did they do? Hundreds and hundreds of ammunitions, of trucks. They load them up with the weapons, all kinds of weapons. Some of the weapons they don't even know how to use. And then they transit with this weapon all the way from Libya, again, from Libya, all the way to Mali. The surprising things about this, Pedros, is there is no direct border between Mali and Libya. How do they carry all these weapons from Libya, all the way from Libya, cross Algeria, cross Niger, in order to come to Mali? They gotta cross Algeria, they gotta cross part of Niger and come to Mali. How they were able to carry all this weapon, dangerous weapon, from all the way to Libya, to Mali?
I vaguely remember when they skipped Libya, going down to Mali. Some of them gave them a safe haven because of the bombardment. They said, okay, there's a strong force coming from Libya, Tuareg. So they had to go directly to Libya. But you can question it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm glad he clarified this question, even for the listener, the earlier part of what caused the second term of
yes.
Amadou Touré's challenge.
Yes.
Should I call it challenge?
It's a challenge, but at the same time, now let me get to the part where Amadou Touré, his regime has completely gone down. Because while he has all this in his hand, trying to deal with all this situation, trying to negotiate with the rebels, trying to fight the terrorists who are in northern Mali, people were being persecuted, people were being raped, children were banned from playing music, from playing soccer. All that, while all that is going on, the international community is United Nations, the world is watching Mali, and a group of soldiers decided that enough was enough. And then from a garrison, a military camp not far from the presidential palace, there was a young man there named Amadou Aya Sanogo. He was a captain at the time, and wasn't afraid of anything. So he gathered some of his buddies, and then to show how fragile the Malian government was at the time, in 3-4 hours, they were able to reverse the whole situations. Because Amadou Touré fled the palace, and then fled to take his family and find a place in one of the Senegalese embassy, went to take refuge there, and then stay there. And then so Amadou Aya, not having any knowledge about politics, being again a military man, took over with some of his buddies. Then there is Mali again with another coup. While all this is going on in northern Mali, that has to be dealt with. So it was not an easy situation. Okay. It was not. But again, international community has put a pressure on this young man, Amadou Aya, and his group. The ECOWAS put the pressures on them. The African Union has put the pressures on them. So they see that they have no support from anybody. And then they claim that they took over so that they can have weapons, they can have ammunition, they can go to northern Mali and to fight those who are fighting us. But then they come to realize that we didn't have anything, nothing. Out of 100 ammunition, according to them, you shoot some of these rockets, out of 100 that you shoot, only one will detonate. To tell you how many years these ammunitions are in the store, having been tested with the sun, with all these humidities and all that stuff, they were not functional.
Okay. I think you gave us a clear picture on that one. Maybe the last question that I have is the northern conflicts. The French got involved.
Yes.
The Malayan army got involved. How successful was the campaign? And the other question that I have is, unless you get to the root cause of the problem, like Tuareg, would they, if not independence, are they going to get some kind of autonomy to administer the region? On those two questions, for one thing, the French and the Malayan army took a very decisive action to get rid of the Al-Qaeda affiliated Maghreb and Tuareg. But there's still some resistance, right? Pocket of resistance here and there. So what do you think of it?
Yeah, to summarize this very quickly, I think we don't have a whole lot of time to go into depth, but after Amadou Aya Sanogo, John Kunda took, after the pressure, John Kunda, president of assembly before, took over for 1 year and then organized elections. After election, Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, known in the name of Ibeki, took over. Precisely, he's the current president of Mali right now. There has been a peace talk. They with first with the Movement National Liberation of Lazawad, MLA. They went to Algeria. They have a lot of negotiation back and forth for 9 months.
Okay.
They have come to agreement that no liberalism, no federalism, no independence, but the Northern Mali would be giving to their destiny is in their own hands. They're going to have a regional assembly where they get to decide everything that goes on in their regions, and then 30% of the budget of Malian budget would be allocated to just that part of the regions, and then so that's where we are right now as to how to get to Northern Mali going again. But to follow up with your other question, there's still a packet of resistance. We are far away from certain situation, because in order to have a peace talk, to start reconstructing, rebuilding the nation, you have to have a security there. Still now there is a packet of Al-Qaeda's and then a group of terrorists in Northern Mali, and then they are not eradicated yet. They need to disarm, and then they need to have a what they call cantonment. They need to have a place for all these ex-combatants to have a place, and then they need to be trained, and then see what part of the life they can do to go on with their life. That need to be also decided for them. For the last part, the French troop, they came in, they helped Mali from collapsing, but they did a phenomenal job. Malians are grateful for them, for all the United Nations, African Unions, ECOWAS, all those who came to help Mali. Malians are very appreciative of their efforts and their sacrifices, but there is more work that needs to be done. Now we've seen the Malian president just recently has asked if they can reduce the number of these United Nations troops there. That tells us progressively Malians are getting better and taking control of their own destiny.
Yeah, I know I said the last question, but until Malik find Salif Keita's music and play for us, I will ask you one question. Salif Keita or Fakature or Koite, one of the two, one of the three. They're my favorites. They came to Twin Cities sometimes. Mali is known for the music. This is a lighter question, you know, and for some reason, you produce a lot of musicians, well-known musicians. If you can, before you answer that question, though, the Al-Qaeda affiliated Maghreb destroyed part of Timbuktu civilization. If you can give me short, you know, what the status is right now, how bad was it has been destroyed, and then by then Malik will rescue us.
I'll thank you again. A lot of these manuscripts in Timbuktu, some of them did not escape from being burned. I think the UNESCO is helping Malian government to rebuild these facilities to make sure these manuscripts are there alive, and then they've been there for centuries, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be there. And we thought that they burned them all, but fortunately, a good chunk of it was in a hideout place where they didn't know what they were, and those are there. Unfortunately, those who were burned, we were not able to retrieve them anymore. But we do still have a lot of those manuscripts of a couple of centuries since the 18th centuries that we have there, and those facilities are getting rebuilt to better suit how we can keep those manuscripts alive, and then how we can let the world know that Timbuktu is still there, the manuscripts are still there, and they can come and visit those places.
That's the pride of Africa.
That's the pride of Africa, yes.
And the music scene.
The music scene, you know what, like most Africans, Malians, I don't know how I'll say this, Malian eat, think, and breathe music.
Yeah.
Music is speaks to our children, and music is our life. You know, with all this sorrow going on, with all this world going on, the happiness we can find sometime, it's like to play music, and music in a language that everybody understand. And then most of the Malian music are spreading a message. And those message is a message of love, or is a message of peace, and then letting you know that tomorrow is going to be better. You're facing a crisis today, but know that it's not here forever. It's going to be better.
Better that.
Yes.
That's funny that I was watching one of the Malayan musician. I forgot her name, but she sings praise or insult.
Yeah.
And when you do that, the people come and put money on you.
That's the tradition.
We have it back home. So
Yes.
it impressed me a whole lot. You wanna say?
Most Africans are the same thing. The traditions are very, very, very similar everywhere. And as Fatoumata Diawara, one of the Malian musicians who was here last summer.
No relation to you, though, right?
No relation to me.
Okay.
But last summer, 2 summers ago, she was here. I was fascinated by what she did. She went on the stage, and she was playing music, and then she actually was playing one song, and was able to demonstrate more than 7 or 8 dances of different part of country.
Oh.
And she's like, this is all we need is just rhythms.
That's it.
Yes. And then in any music you can find yourself in Africa. As far as throwing the money to the singers, it's those who are praising others. And sometimes we can't help ourselves. And you're sitting there and somebody is praising you, talking to you about your great-grandfather that you didn't know, your grandfather that you didn't know, that you yourself, where do you come from, who are you, who you need to be. It's giving you a strength to keep on fighting. It's giving you a strength not to let your generation or your folks down, because you're coming from a great place,
yeah,
traditions.
Yeah.
So don't let your folks down. When that happens, oftentimes all you can do is just stand up, as you're so happy to hear who you are, where you come from, and then some will be throwing money on that singers to let her know that we greatly appreciate the refresher, the memory that you bring back alive.
Thank you, Moussa.
Thank you very much.
On that note, we end our program for today. Hope we'll see you next week with a different guest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mosoma. Tangativo ombusa tanga neusama kosa. Alumuna sisiau yasama kosa. Amuna yeye, koma, samakosa.
Du nouveau à Minneapolis, Tempo Afric Travel. Vous voulez voyager? Achetez vos billets d'avion à l'agence de voyage Tempo Afric Travel. Téléphone 612 729 01 76. Avec l'agence de voyage Tempo Afric Travel,